Thank you, Maria, and welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Phyrexia. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Paul, we are now in the Pioneer rounds, as we just outlined there at the news desk, and we've got a pretty cool matchup here. We've got Abzan Greasefang versus Black-Red Midrange. Black-Red in the hands of Shota Yasooka. And David Inglis, who's somebody who's had immense success over the past few years. You know, now we're kind of back at the paper tables here again, playing that Abzan Greasefang deck.
Yeah, I mean, David Inglis, over the past few years, especially when we kind of moved to the digital events, he's just been completely crushing it. But, you know, Shota Yasooka, same thing, right? It doesn't matter if you're playing on tabletop or on arena. Shota Yasooka has also been completely just winning and having success at every single level. He was, I believe, the most feared player kind of going into that World Championship.
He is a very intimidating player to sit across from at Magic. And here we go. We've got a Thoughtseize to kick off the festivities here for Yasooka. As you can see, all cards exposed here. Thoughtseize can take anything but a land, and it is going to be the opposing Thoughtseize that gets taken away. Usually, players will write down everything that the opponent has in their hand. Shota just memorizes it after looking at it for like half a second because he's Shota.
Much like Mani, Shota is also a machine.
Indeed, he is both. Godless Shrine tapped here for David Inglis as he passes the turn back over. And it is going to be a Mutavault go for Shota. You can see the cards in hand on the left side there. There is a Greasefang and a Raffine's Informant, which we're going to see here.
That's a great draw there.
Trigger Connive.
As he now has found a way to put that Parhelion into the graveyard. Next turn, if Shota has absolutely nothing, of course you could see David just go Greasefang into Parhelion.
That is the dream for the Greasefang deck. It is its primary way to take over the game early, though it does have a mid-range game as well. Wow, we see Fatal Push here to take out the Raffine's Informant.
And if you look at Shota's hand, I don't know if he actually has a way.
Ooh.
He doesn't have a way to stop the combo.
He does. He needs a way to turn on Fatal Push, and he doesn't have it. So he's going to tap out here and play Fable as a Mirror Breaker, and that's going to clear the way now.
Right, and David, I mean, coast is clear. Just go for it.
Untap land.
Yeah.
There it is, and he can just play Greasefang.
Turn 3.
Wow. That's through a Thoughtseize as well, by the way. Now this Parhelion 2 gets to get in the air, and that is going to produce 2 4/4 Flying Vigilance Angels before it gets bounced back to hand. But wow, what a turn there for David. Now the question is, does Shota have the ability to fight back through what just happened? And the answer is kind of.
Yeah, he's got multiple Fatal Pushes here, and currently David doesn't have a way to put that Parhelion back into the graveyard. So David does want to find some way to find a card and put it into the yard. If you do look at his hand, though, that is a Grizzly Salvage. You can try to hit something off of that. Worst case scenario, you can still run out into Seeka's Chariot.
Shota decided on Chapter 2 there of Fable to get rid of one of his 2 copies of Dreadbore. He is having a little bit of mana issues here with that Mutavault, so he's going to try to shore those up by throwing the Goblin Shaman into the red zone here. I assume it's going to get blocked.
Yeah, and then I think after blocks, you're going to see Shota cast that Fatal Push on the token.
Okay, he did not block it, so it looks like David does not want to turn on Fatal Push for his opponent, but as it turns out, Shota does have the ability to kill Greasefang if he'd like with Dreadbore, but he still has those Angels to contend with.
Yeah, a lot of permanents to deal with. Remember, there's that... Oh, no, the Mutavault's on Shota's side, but, I mean, there's 12 power on David Inglis' side of the battlefield here.
And there it is. Dreadbore to kill Greasefang. So that stops the nonsense. But he still needs to deal with these 2 Angels. And the Mutavault really awkward here because he does have a Fatal Push or maybe even 2 copies of it left over. And it would be nice to be able to cast one.
Yeah, so now he's going to have to use the Treasure to use the Fatal Push on the Angel. And then, given that Mutavault's up, can not cast another removal spell. So Shota will be going down to 1 life here off the attack from the Angels. And I'm just wondering if David Inglis just chooses to go wide here, right? Instead of even going for the combo, just cast Chariot. That's 3 lethal creatures on the battlefield, right? Shota's down to 1.
Yeah, that seems like the play here. An untapped Temple Garden now is going to lead the way for Yasooka's Chariot, and Yasooka needs a way to sweep the entire board clean, and I don't believe that he has it.
Yeah, I mean, there are Wrath effects out of the sideboard, but I don't think there's any in the main.
He is going to go for Chapter 3 here, though, potentially.
So that's
If
two
he
blockers.
can kill the Angel,
yeah,
then he is alive, although he is attacking here with the Goblin Shaman.
and if you're David, that cannot be a great feeling.
No.
Right? Because you're just like, well, didn't you need that creature? Didn't you need to hold that creature back to block? So that's
Right.
telling me you probably have, well, or not.
Or you were just Shota bluffing me to see what I would do.
Right.
And it looks like David Inglis passed the test there because he does pick up game number 1. He faced the Thoughtseize on turn 1, just brushed his shoulders off, and Greasefanged the full on 3.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. Rafine's Informant off the top, right?
Huge.
Right. David Inglis's hand was 4 lands, Rafine's Informant, Greasefang, and Pardee, and he just drew the perfect card on turn 2, and Shota just unfortunately did not have an answer.
Okay, let's get into game number 2 here. Taking a look at the opening hands, Paul, you see Blood Tithe Harvester, a Braid, and 3 lands there off of a mulligan, or maybe they're just not quite all the way populated. And then, yeah, there's another Mutavault there. And then for David, he's got the Informant, he's got Traverse, he's got an Yasooka's Chariot, and he's got a Vessel of Nascency. But 3 mana Confluence, that'll add up fast. That being said, you know, that's a hand with some potential, but it's not doing a whole lot on its own.
Yeah, the matchup certainly gets better for Shota after sideboard. That's typically the case when you play these mid-range style decks. You board out some cards that don't have as much impact in a given matchup, and then all of a sudden you get to bring in a Braids or Rending Volley, right? Cards that allowed you to kind of break up that combo that David Inglis is going for.
Okay, Blood Tithe Harvester has hit. It's going to bring the Blood Token along with it before Shota passes the turn back with just Vessel of Nascency on the battlefield here for David.
David probably just going to go for the Informant, has a juicy Parhelion to discard here and can get in the way of the Blood Tithe Harvester as well.
Okay, there's a Parhelion 2 in the yard. Remember, Shota has not had a chance to see what David's working with here, so he could easily be facing down another Parhelion smacking him on turn 3. We know he doesn't have it at least right now, but there's a draw step here,
Yeah,
Paul.
there is. Now, if you're on Shota's side, though, Shota does have multiple ways to break apart the combo with the Abrade and Kolaghan's Command in hand.
Is David going to get greasy here?
No Greasefangs yet in David's hand. Might see a Liliana here, potentially, or just the Thoughtseize to try to clear the way. Now, keep in mind, if you go Thoughtseize, end of turn pop Vessel, all of a sudden, there's a really high chance that you will have Delirium. And if you have Delirium, you can cast Traverse the Ulvenwald, get a Greasefang, and hope it resolves.
Yeah, that's got to be tempting. First off, though, Rafine's Informant is going to offer a trade that Shota's not interested in.
And this is telling me that we're going to see a Liliana here instead.
Yep, he's going to go with Liliana of the Veil. That's going to be minus to kill, make Shota sacrifice a creature. Now, he's got a few options. The Harvester is sitting there, but he actually could go for the Mutavault here if he felt that he needed the Oddmore presence more than a land. It's a rarity that people do that, but
Right.
he's got options.
And David being aggressive here because not often do you see people just play the Liliana knowing that it will die.
Yeah.
But David is very mindful of this, just going, look, I'm gonna still play this. It's still gonna act as a removal spell. And next turn, I'm just gonna play the more mid-range strategy and just go for Yasooka's Chariot. That's the plan B for this deck. And oftentimes it ends up winning the game after sideboard because players are so ready for the combo, right? You get to bring in unlicensed Hearse, all kinds of other effects like that. So you just go, you know what? I'm just gonna play 3 mana 4/3s and Yasooka's Chariots and hope to get there that way.
We see Kolaghan's Command on end step there from Shota. Card's just a 2-for-1 all day long, and it was here. It killed Rafine's Informant, and it bought back the Blood Tithe Harvester to hand. So you can see Shota starting to position himself for the grind. He does have an interesting choice here. He can fire up the Mutavault and take care of Liliana, but that does take up a good chunk of his mana for the turn.
Yeah. Might see a Thoughtseize first,
Okay.
just to see what David is working with, and probably gonna go ahead and take that Chariot, would be my guess. He did fire off that Culligan's Command already. Culligan's Command is a reasonable answer to the Chariot. Still doesn't clean up everything, but you do get the Chariot and the token. We're going to be doing a graveyard check here. For those of you maybe not so familiar with Delirium, 4 card types in the graveyard does allow you to get a bonus ability, which allows you to search for anything that you want with Traverse the Ulvenwald.
It's going to be Yasooka's Chariot taken by that Thoughtseize.
I wonder if Shota even cares if this Liliana goes up to 2.
You definitely have a window.
Right.
You know?
I mean, Shota's working with some lands. Perhaps he just wants to run out of Blood Tithe Harvester here.
Yeah, if he's got an untapped red or black source, he can do so.
Knowing that David does not have a Greasefang in hand.
Right.
Currently with Creature and Artifact in the yard. Of course, ticking up Liliana, you could discard a 3rd type.
Sure.
All right. Playing it a little more conservative here. Passing, not playing anything, or attacking Liliana.
It's interesting. And it's going to have to, I think that David Inglis is going to have to raise an eyebrow to that. These are the type of situations where, you know, bluffing isn't really a thing. It's more about, can I narrow down what type of card he actually has here? And you usually can.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you could be thinking instant speed removal of some sort. In this case, he has an Abrade. But, you know, another Culligan's Command, something like that could be on your mind. Okay, he's going to plus Liliana. And actually, the Blood Tithe Harvester is going to go to the bin here for Shota.
David with the land in yard and has a Thoughtseize in hand. That'll make it 4 types in the graveyard.
Okay, so there's Thoughtseize going on the stack.
And no targets for a Braid here, so Shota can't even run it out.
Yeah, he might just actually go for the the blood here. It's a little awkward, but he
discard
just to get rid of it because he's going to lose it anyway. Let's see if he.
Oh, and he
found sucker,
okay,
gotcha.
A little bit of value there.
Yeah, I'll discard it for you was more accurate.
Yeah, and he got to look 1 card deeper, right? He was going to draw that land anyways.
Still, that turn was very clunky there for Shota, right? He did not take care of Liliana the Veil, and he didn't get to cast a spell.
Yeah, and now if you're Shota, given that David already knows your hand, you're probably going to see him fire up that Hive of the Eye Tyrant, exile the Parhelion in the graveyard, and then attack Liliana and get that off the battle.
Hey, that's pretty good. Take a permanent off the battlefield while also preventing your opponent from doing anything silly.
Although David can still cast Traverse, get Greasefang, and still just get Yasooka's Chariot into play. And given that Shota just has no removal in hand, that's still just a headache to deal with.
It really is. And remember, it goes back to your hand at the end of turn, which in Yasooka's Chariot's case is a blessing. Yeah. Okay, here it is. Hive of the Eye Tyrant to at least stem the absolute major bleeding here.
Is he going face? Oh, nice. So he's going face here so that there's only 3 types in David's yard, but he is sacrificing this Vessel of Nascency, right?
And that's almost guaranteed Delirium.
And you're putting an enchantment in the graveyard, so that should be Delirium, yes.
Yeah, so in this case, guaranteed. I mean, it's almost guaranteed. It usually gets you at least 3/4 of the way on its own. In this case, it's for sure.
And of course, worst case scenario, David can just -2 Liliana, right?
Yes.
So
that would put her in the graveyard.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it might have just been better to just attack Liliana because it was going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
But perhaps Shota thinking, you know what? I just need to just kill you with these creature lands.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Delirium is on. David's going to go to his draw step here.
If he finds a Parhelion off the top, he'd be able to discard it to the Liliana, get Greasefang in play.
Shota trying to punish David for running the 2 copies of Mana Confluence here as well.
Yeah, I think they're playing the full 4.
Yeah, he discarded one too.
Right,
He's
yeah.
got 2 on the battlefield that have been kind of chewing away at him. So every attack that Shota can get on the life total of David could put him in that range where he
Yeah.
may not be able to tap his lands
You've got
for
2
mana.
Mutavaults in play, but the thing is, I mean, you just get that Yasooka's Chariot back into play, and boom, all of a sudden you're brick walling 2 of the Mutavaults.
Yeah, Mutavault doesn't look so hot. So there it is, Greasefang into hand thanks to Traverse, and now onto the battlefield thanks to mana. And there comes the Yasooka's Chariot.
2 tokens, crew it up.
This is gross.
This is what this deck does.
This is not the first option, right? Like
No,
he
of course
had the
not.
first option taken away, and I mean, in some ways, this looks worse.
Yeah. Shota needs to find some kind of a sweeper here.
He sure does. There's a plus on Liliana the Veil. That's going to get a land out of Shota's hand. He's got to find something now. His life total is falling very quickly as well.
Yes, maybe a ritual. He has Ritual of Soot in the sideboard. It's a very odd card to bring in this matchup, but certainly would be great on this board.
Land now for Shota. Remember, David's up a game here, and if he can finish the job, he will remain undefeated and improve his record to 5-0 and continue the streak of David Inglis just crushing every tournament he's entered.
Yep. Team captain of the most successful team of last year, Team Handshake.
Team Handshake, yeah.
A couple of players, I believe one of the players, I think it was Eli Loveman, who was saying, and I had asked him, why'd you choose to play this deck? He's like, well, I'm just playing what the captain's playing. We all follow the captain. So
Aye, Captain.
Not a bad choice, right?
Once again, no action here for Shota. He just simply passes the turn back with his creature lands at the ready. He does have a Bonecrusher Giant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to block. That could be him.
I mean, if
giving up.
David just puts a Sky Sovereign into play, just to haste for 6 damage in the air, I mean, I think that's just it, right?
Yeah, I mean, he just said, okay, I want to go to combat, and Shota said, sure, you can have a Sky Sovereign console flagship with haste. Why not?
Yeah. Oh, well, I suppose this is 10 damage if Shota activates Hive of the Eye Tyrant, right?
And
So
he eats a cat.
yeah, it eats a cat. Shota then goes down to 1. But remember,
then
David's
loses
also
the
going to
eye.
cast the Seeker's Chariot this turn.
He is, and he's going to activate Liliana of the Veil as well.
get the
probably
Hive
just
off the
get the Hive
battlefield.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really, really bad spot now for Shota Yasooka. David Inglis, even though it's Plan B, has been able to simply overwhelm Shota with cards, with permanents. I mean, look at the permanent count here.
And this is, we've touched on it in many broadcasts, but this is kind of the hallmark of what it takes to be kind of a successful combo deck a lot of the times, the Plan B, right?
Yes.
In the last round, we saw Nassif go from the creativity deck into a kind of a control deck after board. And you're seeing this deck going, look, I know you're going to have a lot of answers for me. I can still play this mid-range strategy and still beat people down with that.
You know, those to me are the best types of deck. Like if you can find an archetype, particularly in an older format, that has, you know, we call it like a free win, where if you just put together a certain combo of cards, you can do something broken or extreme. But if you can't actually cast spells that matter, that's the sweet spot. You know, we've seen that with Splinter Twin in the past, but there's also been, you know, oh, and there's the handshake there, by the way. David Inglis is able to finish the job here. You know, there's been infinite life gain, infinite damage decks that were built around cards like Birthing Pod or Collected Company, you know, where you could search things up. But the cards that were getting you to those infinite things were doing things for you. They were buffering your life total, they're blocking, they were attacking, they were getting you value along the way. But if your opponent left the shields down, and this deck reminds me of that, oops, you know, take 13, you're dead.
Yeah, I mean, turns out you just play that fair game, run out the Seeker's Chariot, you're just going to win. And you've seen that with a lot of these other strategies. Whereas when you do play a hyper-linear strategy, if players are ready for you, you're going to have a bad time.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened here. So we've got David Inglis picking up, then we are going to take a short break. But when we come back, we'll have Daniel Fournier versus Tristan Wylde-LaRue. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to coverage here of Pro Tour Phyrexia. We're in Philadelphia. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm with Paul Cheon, and we're bringing you coverage here of Pioneer. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy to be here and really happy that you're here with us. We've got Tristan Wylde-LaRue with Lotus Field. We got a chance to see a little bit of him last round as well, versus Daniel Fournier on kind of the bread and butter deck of the format, which we saw in the hands of Shota last round here. We have got the black-red mid-range deck. You can see a couple of invites stacked up there for Tristan. Daniel Fournier, regional championship from Canada, is coming in here. And again, you know, two very, very different approaches to Pioneer and to Magic in general, right? One of them is looking to kind of cover all the bases, have a well-rounded game plan of disruption, getting some attacks in, and eventually being able to win, where the Lotus Field deck is taking the complete opposite approach. It's looking to do its own thing and get you dead nice and quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into this, we kind of expected a wide spread of decks, all kinds of different strategies. And in that field, if you know, it's pretty safe to just kind of play that Rakdos mid-range deck where you're like, I'm not exactly sure what's coming, but I'm going to play deck with Thoughtseize. I can get whatever I need, hand disruption, removal, and then after sideboards, a little more hand disruption, and just hope that I have kind of a 50-50 matchup against everything, and give yourself put yourself in a position to kind of outplay some of the people that you play against.
I'm assuming that that's a Thoughtseize. That is a wild-looking Thoughtseize.
That, it has to be a Thoughtseize.
It is. He's already marked himself at 18, but that is sweet. I have never seen that one before. Gonna have to get used to that. And what did he take? Sylvan Scrying away from Tristan. But look at that, Arboreal Grazer.
Yeah. Botanical Sanctum into Temple of Mystery, into Grazer. Arboreal Grazer, just phenomenal in this deck. Just allows you to break serve in a lot of matchups, right? Just being on the draw, the body is relevant, especially when you play against the various aggressive creature strategies that we may see later, Gruul Vehicles, Mono White Aggro, and just makes it so that you can potentially get that Lotus Field into play as early as turn 2.
You think it's cute or not cute?
I have no comment on that.
Ooh.
Some people may say it's cute.
Ooh.
Was that a hot take? I don't know.
And I liked it. You really dodged that,
yeah,
that line of questioning.
So Tristan really looking for Lotus Field there, or a way to find Lotus Field.
Absolutely not.
Shimmer possibility, kind of acting as impulse number 5, right? Just an extra way to just make sure you can find the land. Oh,
and there it is.
Lotus Field, all right.
Lotus Field on the battlefield.
And it's going to be tough here for Daniel. No pressure. Lotus Field turn 2 for Tristan already. And not much the Rakdos mid-range deck can do to interact with this mana.
No, and you know, this is a really good snapshot, right, of the different approaches to the deck. Okay, there was a Thoughtseize in there. That's cool. But one person played Blood Tithe Harvester, you know, a 3/2. Wow. And the other person played a Broken Land here. And Tristan's going to have 2 copies of it in just a moment here. And then you're going to see the fireworks.
Yeah. Then you're just going to see him sit down, count his mana, and then cast a big spell and just win the game.
Right. Still 4 cards left in hand here for Tristan as well. So that's going to be a little chip in there. But with 20 life total to play with here for Tristan, he doesn't mind taking a hit of 3.
Things certainly will get a lot better for Daniel after sideboard, after you can take out all those fatal pushes and power word kills out of his deck and replace it with hand disruption. But game 1, always very rough. Really
rough. So there you go. You see that one of the key interactions here. The first step is to get Lotus Field on the battlefield as soon as possible. But the second step is to make a copy of it using Thespian Stage, which is exactly what's happened. Now he gets to untap, play Pour Over the Pages, and we are off to the races, Paul.
Yep, Pour Over the Pages will be netting you 1 mana here, 5 to play. Untap 2 cards.
I mean, it's incredible.
Now we're on 7 mana.
That gains you a mana.
Right.
Like, what?
Now we're on 8 mana, and Tristan just doing all of the things here. Just needs to find an Ultimatum, an Omniscience, perhaps a Leer, or just all the pours.
Each of these netting 1 mana, and in this case, it's blue.
And I saw an Omniscience.
And you did? Okay.
So now you can just play that and just play everything.
Wow.
Turn 3.
Turn 3 Omniscience? Are you kidding me right now? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's Omniscience on the stack and on the battlefield. And now this
All
gets kind of
right.
interesting, right? Because does Daniel say, "Okay, fine, I'm done," or does he actually make you kill him? And he's going to make it go. There
I
comes
mean,
Dark
you're
Petition.
casting Dark Petition with Omniscience in play. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and now he's finally seen enough. It only took about 12 seconds longer,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a very quick and a very compact game one going to Tristan there, Paul. That was a lot, right? It was once we saw the Lotus field get copied, it was over.
Right.
Also, 3 pour over the pages in a row. Come on.
That's pretty wild. But now we're sideboarded, right? Daniel's going to have far more ways to interact with Tristan, more hand disruption, right? And 2 copies of Necromentia. And Necromentia is extremely powerful in this matchup because you can actually name, you can name basically any card other than a basic land, which means you can name Lotus Field if you're on the play
Wow.
and exile all copies. And if you do that, they just simply don't have a way to win.
Yeah, the Arboreal Grazer beatdown plan falls slightly short.
Yeah.
We saw Duress there take away the Shimmer of Possibility, and that's a thought.
That's a thought. I learned from the last game.
We're all
I know
over that one, aren't we,
already.
Paul? Only 3 cards left in hand. One of them's an Ultimatum.
Yeah, and this time around, I mean, Tristan does not have a Lotus Field
No
here.
Lotus Field. He's got a Vizier of Tumbling Sands, an Ultimatum, and a Thespian Stage.
My bad. So, just kidding. I'll take the Vizier here.
So he's going to take the Vizier.
Just kidding. Was he trying to take the Thespian Stage or something?
I think he was actually just kidding.
Oh.
I didn't hear what he said.
All right, so Lotus Field, Sylvan Scrying, those are the types of cards that Tristan is looking for right now. Doesn't have any of those pieces.
He has so many top decks that he can find that aren't those, but that find them.
Right.
Right, or that dig for them, or that dig for things that dig for them.
Right.
And right now, even though his hand has been properly disrupted, he's got a lot of time. There's no pressure.
He's got a good amount of time, although I believe Daniel had a Go Blank in hand. So that'll mean that that'll nab at both cards in Tristan's hand and exile the graveyard. Oftentimes this deck does play 1 copy of Lear and utilize the graveyard for that. So now, I mean, Tristan is just completely hellbent, nothing here. I mean, if he still finds the Lotus Field, he has a ton of mana, a lot of top decks available, right?
And there's also just a lot of cards
Yeah.
that he can use to start chaining together. Basically, he just wants to find anything that's not a grazer or a land.
Wonder what he's copying here.
Yeah, perhaps just a Botanical Sanctum or something. Just to
Maybe a
get his
Castle
mana going.
Locthwain.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that.
I mean,
He's a little far away from
close to
activating
activating
it,
it right
but
now. But when you have no cards in hand, if you can maybe find a
He
Lotus
did
Field-
name Castle Locthwain.
Well, the thing is, the moment Tristan finds
He's a
Lotus
dreamer.
Field,
Then he can start
probably
popping
will
off.
just copy the Lotus Field because you can use that ability again.
Yes. But this was way funnier. Let's see if he finds a Lotus Field.
All right. Beat down.
Oh, wow.
If this lair gets there, oof,
It's yeah, it's a quarter of the way there,
one
Paul.
damage at a time.
I mean, again, as much as Daniel has disrupted Tristan, he hasn't actually put forth any game plan of his own. Oh, but there's Necromentia.
Can Tristan even win from here outside of that lair? I mean, he's just going to name the Lotus Fields here, and
Wow.
Tristan's deck does not have the ability to cast. Well, I mean, I guess he did copy the Castle Locthwain, so that's a black source.
Yes.
Right, but I'm not sure that this deck is capable of winning without Lotus Field, unless
You're thinking
somehow
of
draw
Ultimatum
8
or whatever?
lands, right? You need to
Yeah.
draw 8 lands into the Ultimatum. So, as long as Daniel can find a way to kill Tristan before he gets to, I suppose, 3 green, 2 black, 2 blue.
But we're getting to such a right. I mean,
Right.
you're going down the road of like, is it actually possible in any real way? And the answer is no.
Yeah. It's Lair of the Hydra time. That's what we're on.
I mean, he just, I guess, has to hope that Daniel never, because Daniel does, I'm sure, remove most of his removal.
right? So it
But
could
not
potentially.
all?
Yeah, but Daniel can just play creatures, right? So just to kind of get in the way. Tristan could also potentially copy the lair if he wants.
Oh, I like that.
But
Big
I mean-
decision point is, do I keep it on Castle Locthwain to try to live the dream, or do I just copy the layer so that I'll have a backup?
it's like, what's the best draw? Just untap land? I'm just wondering.
Okay, it's in
Boom,
there
there we
again, and he
go.
drew a Mechanical Sanctum. So it's going to be more next turn, Daniel. Shields up, buddy. Ooh, that's the best swamp.
I'll do 3 damage to it.
Okay,
Okay, he's
3 to
got
the face.
Phyrexia.
Not close yet. Needs a few more cards to be able to escape.
This is interesting.
One more card.
And look, here comes the layer again, Paul. He's down to, what, 10 now?
I was
Down
at
to
2.
10,
Sorry,
but
I should go into 10 here. 10, yeah.
yeah.
Borderline impossible.
Oh, he found another land.
I heard borderline impossible.
Yeah, because he drew his other Botanical Sanctum. Oh, no.
Okay. Do you want to activate Castle Lochthwain? Take 2?
Yes.
Slightly not correct.
Oh, man. I mean, this is an attack for 4 next turn.
Your turn.
Oh, he passed the turn back. Lair of the Hydra.
1 card. 1 card. Think I left Fatal Push in? Lost 2.
Did you leave Fatal
Did
Push
you
in?
leave a Fatal Push in? Well, we would have found that last time.
I mean, Tristan, you only have 1 game plan here. Come on.
Fire it up.
Let's
Get in
go.
for 4. Oh! He had Power Word
Power
kill.
word kill!
He did have 1 left over.
Oh, locked on tonight.
All right. Okay.
Okay,
And
now this is
now-
business time
now-
for Fournier.
Yeah, now Daniel's.
He
Daniel's
activated the
good
castle
here.
on
Now
end
it's
step.
going to be over.
Yeah, and this is where it kind of
Yeah.
snowballs too.
Right.
So Crocs attack.
Good
up Death
effort, though,
Hunger.
Tristan.
I
Good
liked
effort.
it. Good pivot.
I'd prefer if you didn't.
I don't know what he's drawing. He drew a Vizier. Oh, sorry, an Impulse.
Yeah.
Did you hear the echo?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I'm trying to find, but why not start casting?
But I will
some
just
spells?
continue playing this game.
Yeah, game 1 went so quickly as well that, time on the clock isn't going to be a factor.
Right.
So I don't blame him. Just churn through a few cards. You'll know soon enough. And, that Crux is going to kill you in a couple turns anyway.
Yeah, that thing can end games quickly.
Very
I
much
mean,
so.
Balaged recovery, get your land back, play it. But at this point, with the 6/6 in play,
Get the layer back and
get the
start-
layer back. Well, what else are you going to get back?
Oh, man. Paul, you find the best lines. I love that.
I guess you could have used Otawara. Did he just play that? Oh, he would have had to discard it.
Yeah, because
Oh.
the Crux is going to come smashing. Okay, he's going to activate Castle Lochthwain here. Feels that with no pressure on the other side.
I'll go to 14 and I'll block.
All right.
Yeah, just 2-turn clock now. So let's see if Tristan can come up with anything, though. It feels impossible.
There's just nothing.
Yeah, he just keeps casting impulses. Omniscient? Yeah, I don't think
nope,
so.
That's not going to get it done. Just
Pour
maybe
over the
get
pages.
a land,
and
another
some
land.
lands. Yeah, I guess.
I'll play Botanical Sanctum.
Problem is you need
He
the
has all
second
4
black.
sanctums.
The problem is Tristan needs the second black to be able to cast Emergent Ultimatum.
Yeah.
Right? Only has the one that's the Castle Lochthwain. So had he found another Thespian stage, copy a Lochthwain, get 2 black, then he could top deck Ultimatum.
In the meantime, it looks like Daniel's just trying to get himself to the point that he can close out the game for sure next turn.
Oh, excuse me. Daniel has an Urborg in play, so he could have top decked
Oh.
Pour Over the Pages. Not Pour Over the Pages, the Emergent Ultimatum.
He has the OG Urborg in play. Very nice.
Yeah. I wonder if he
You're fine. I'm gonna set up my
should have played that.
Oh, look, he's going to go Ultimatum.
the Gabriel Nassif right here?
Yeah, he's actually activating Castle Lochthwain here.
Okay. Yeah. Because I don't know if Daniel's had that Urborg the entire game.
I feel like he didn't, but
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Here we go.
I cannot say I've ever had anything like this come up. No. Like, I would like to draw Emergent Ultimatum.
yeah, we think so, Tristan. Emergent Ultimatum, did you find it?
I mean, he would have slammed it, right? He would have slammed it.
I
This,
think
this
he
is
would've.
not an Emergent Ultimatum.
These guys are having really good table banter.
Yeah.
This is another, we miss this part,
Well, it's one of those things where your opponent, your opponent can't really do anything to interact with what you're trying to do. So it's
Might as
you
well.
can just loudly say what you're looking for
Yeah,
because you're just gonna go for it anyways.
right.
I don't feel like I should have any chance, but I'll play Mastermind's Acquisition.
Mastermind's acquisition because of that that Urborg.
The Urborg that's in play. What can you get that costs
He said he didn't
Fading
think
Hope?
Fading Hope to bounce Cruxa? Does that even keep you alive?
Right, because you take
No.
3 from the Harvester, and then you still take 3 when Croxa gets cast.
Right. Unless he has something that he can... He
Oh,
has two
card-
cards
he
in
has
hand.
2 cards in
Yeah.
hand. Okay.
Oh, but there's Bone Crusher Giant. How rude from Daniel Fournier.
I don't-
Disrupts his
yeah.
hand, kills his creature.
I feel like Daniel played the Urborg that turn.
Yeah.
So probably something you might have wanted to avoid. Not clear Tristan can go off if he doesn't have
Yeah.
a Lotus Field in play anyways, but...
Okay, Island's going to kick things off here for game number 3 between Tristan Wylde-LaRue and Daniel Fournier. That was a really fun game number 2, although perhaps not as fun for Tristan, who kind of had his hand ripped apart. He did pivot into a game plan that gave himself the best chance to win, but it wasn't a very high percentage, and it didn't get there. Huh. So he's played an island here, but I did see an Arboreal Grazer.
Yeah, when your opponent plays an island turn 1 in that deck, not a lot of basics. Generally means their hand is likely kind of weak, right? Because you'd be leading with Sanctum or Temple of Mystery or any of those other lands.
Pithy Needle's going to name
That's-
Thespian Stage, so that's going to be one line of defense that Tristan's going to have to work his way through.
Yeah.
Figured that one out on my. Sleeves are showing.
There's basically just one target for the Needle, so makes sense. Okay, so did have the stage, does have a Lotus Field.
Play a bank buster.
And there's a Reckoner Bankbuster now for Fournier. But I think we're going to see Impulse on end step here for Tristan. It's worth noting that the Pithy Needle does shut off the activated ability of Thespian Stage, but not the mana.
And next turn, Tristan can run out the Lotus Field, float the mana if he wanted to cast something else.
So let's say the Pithy Needle stays on the battlefield here. Does Tristan just have to like build up 2 lands, play a Lotus, build up 2 more, play another Lotus? Like he's just forced to do it the good old fashioned
Yeah,
way
it's
here?
just it's so much easier to really go off. You really want to have 2 copies of Lotus Field.
Right, I'm
play.
saying like
Right.
with this out there, is
Right.
that his only other recourse is just to do it the brute force method?
Yeah, and you did see that he had 2 Lotus Fields
Yeah,
in hand.
that's
now
what I was
this deck
wondering.
does have multiple ways to deal with the Needle, right? You are playing Boseiju, you can find that, but certainly this will slow him down. But again, we saw the Rakdos deck really doesn't put a lot of pressure.
No.
So if you just keep hitting your land drops, there's just not too, once you kind of get that Lotus Field in play, there's just not too many ways Daniel can interact with the Lotus Field specifically.
See, there we go. That Thespian Stage not going to copy it anyway, so he's going to get the first one on the battlefield. It's worth noting also that Lotus Field, you can look at the bottom there, taps to add 3 mana of any one color. Last game, it was all blue, so it didn't really matter. But if you are going to try to cast an Emergent Ultimatum, you do need to float some green, some black in there as well as blue. So those type of small things can pop up occasionally where you have to make sure that you get all your mana under you correctly.
And, and keep in mind, too, cards like the Boseiju, there's usually 1 or 2 copies of that in the deck, along with Otawara. But also note that you have cards like Sylvan Scrying. So that's just additional copies of ways to get that Pithing Needle off the battlefield. Daniel going for the beatdown plan here.
Kind of appreciate that,
Yeah.
right? If he can capitalize on this slowdown method, because if he can't, if he's just like maybe drawing a couple extra cards off of Bankbuster and just kind of sitting over there, well, he will eventually get the 2 fields down even through the Needle.
Yep.
And you can see he's got these little cards that show what color he's added for the reasons that I mentioned just a minute ago. So he's going to go with green, and that's Sylvan Scrying. That's a sweet.
Probably
Old
getting a
school one.
Boseiju. Perhaps an Otawara. Doesn't need another Lotus Field.
I think that's Beast.
Okay, sure.
So what does that signal if you're sitting in Daniel's seat? That he already has an answer for the Needle?
Right, it's saying, oh, look, you're getting the Thespian Stage, and you likely have perhaps another Sylvan Scrying,
Okay.
right? Or something to get that Needle off the battlefield. It's also possible Tristan doesn't have another untapped land. We saw that he had a Lotus Field, but maybe that's the only land in hand. And,
And he
that's,
wants to get a land drop this turn.
right, and then if you get something like a Boseiju, what are you going to do, play it?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he's got the 1 green mana floating for Arboreal Grazer, which he's going to play.
And remember,
That'll play a temple.
Tristan still hasn't played a land for his turn.
That's right. He sees a Botanical Sanctum, but he doesn't want it. And now he can play the Thespian Stage out of his hand. But again, we have to note that the Pithy Needle is on Thespian Stage, so he doesn't get to just go Lotus next turn.
Well, yeah, but then he has Lotus Field in hand.
Right.
Right? So next turn you go Lotus Field or float 2 mana or float 5 mana, play Lotus Field, and then you have Hidden Strings.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can start generating a ton of
Yeah,
mana that
I mean,
way.
this is what we talked about, right? Yeah, the Pithy Needles slows him down, but it is not going to stop him.
Right.
Like, he will get both of them down.
So now Daniel going, okay, I take the acquisition. You only have a cycle with the Vizier of Tumbling Sands. So if you don't draw Pour Over the Pages or some big spell, might not be able to go off next turn.
That's right. And if that's the case, he might be able to keep the pressure up with the Bone Crusher Giant and the Reckoner Bankbuster.
And the body on the Grazer are also very relevant, right? Just,
It
hey, look,
really is.
I soak 4 damage.
I mean, it
Yeah.
effectively said green, gain 4
Fog.
life. Exactly. Green, fog, play an extra land. And there's Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Again, these are the types of plays that Daniel's making that are generating him advantage over time, but not right now,
Yeah.
right? And he would much prefer to get that 16 plummeting here for Tristan. Now, if Daniel can get to that critical mass, his life total will fall very quickly, but he's giving him a lot of time to mess around here.
Okay, lots of great draws here for Tristan. What can he find here off this cycle?
He cycled the Vizier of Tumbling Sands after floating.
Impulse.
Wow, he is seeing a lot
Oh,
of cards
that's a
here, Paul.
Boseiju.
Another Sylvan Scrying.
That's kind of a way. If he wanted a big spell,
Yeah.
pour, or an ultimatum, something along the lines, because he does have mana with the Lotus Field in hand and the Hidden Strings. So does he want to go for more mana in the Hidden Strings, or just go ahead and get that Boseiju to get Pithing Needle off the battlefield?
He could even kill the Bankbuster
Could
or
kill
the
the
Fable.
Bankbuster. But Tristan, I mean, doesn't have action here.
He's going to take Sylvan Scrying, I think. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you just get a temple or something like that just to try to make sure you find something on top?
Pulse hits the yard. No mana floating at the moment. So he's going to tap his Lotus Field for green, and he's going to get Otawara, I think. You see, he has a Boseiju right at the bottom there, too, if he wants to grab one of those. He's taking a little browse through the library.
Yeah, not a
too.
ton of amazing options, because he
Right.
already kind of has all the mana that he needs. And
Oh.
does he get the temple here? Because he's locked to just have the 2 Lotus Fields in play.
Yes.
So he's doing this to just make sure that he has extra looks to find a big spell
Yeah.
over the next 2 draw steps, right? You look at
Exactly.
the top. This is great because he doesn't need to play the Lotus Field this turn. He can still play it next turn. And with the Hidden Strings, he should have plenty of mana to cast whatever he draws.
And what that means, though, is that every single card that he gets a chance to look at in that library, one scry can make the difference. Because
Right.
as we've seen, like when we saw him play 3 copies of Pour Over the Pages back to back to back in one turn, right? It doesn't take that much to get that wheel turning, but you need to hit that one critical spell. So even a Scry 1 could do it. If this goes back on
Oh,
top,
it's on the
then Daniel's going to
bottom.
be really upset, but it didn't. It went right to the bottom.
Okay, and Daniel's going to be able to crack in for at least 6 damage here. Can find another creature, can get in for potentially 10.
He discarded 2 cards to the Fable as well, so he's going to see a heck of a lot of cards this turn, 3 of them in the hand. He's staring down an opponent with no board outside of lands and 16 life. If at all possible, he would love to try to construct a 2-turn win here and just say, you tap the top of that library, and if you brick, I'm going to kill you next turn.
Yeah, I believe I saw Bloodtide Harvester there in Daniel's hands.
That could
You
help.
play that, crew up
Buster.
the Bankbuster, get in, and force Tristan to top deck a big spell to win on that turn.
It looks like he's got perhaps a pair of Bone Crusher Giants in hand.
I mean, I can't see. I'm not sure that you have lethal here, right? I just don't think the mana works for that to happen, right? So
Not this turn.
Yeah. So
I liked your line. He's just figuring out as long as it's 2 turns.
right. Because this turn, I mean, keep in mind you do get a treasure from the 2/2 there,
Yeah, the shaman will spit out a treasure.
so you'll have access to 5 mana total after the attack. Oh,
he's gonna draw
looking for
himself a
disruption
card.
here. Basically thinking, look, I still have a 2-turn clock here with the stomps, so I'm going to try to find Thoughtseize.
Combat.
Okay, it's gonna have to settle for the 6 damage
Okay.
and the treasure token here. Down to 10. Still has a land to give here as well.
What you got, Tristan? What's on top? This needs to be big. We have access to 6 mana. Lotus Field. Play Lotus Field, go to 4. Play Hidden Strings, go up to 10 mana. So he has 10 mana next turn.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow, look at
Right.
that. He immediately sacks the blood, getting rid of a Bone Crusher Giant, and perhaps
here we
looking for
go.
that Thoughtseize. So this is a
Tristan?
big top deck here for Tristan.
What you got?
Pour over the pages, get some ultimatums going.
He has all the mana that he can ever wish for. Boom!
Oh, it's pour over the pages.
Okay.
I think you like that
I'm
one.
gonna put this one back in my hand.
I think
and,
you like
see what
that
we got
one.
Here.
Here we go. That's the most exciting one.
Yeah. 5 mana floating. Pour. Gets to untap the Lotus Fields here. Lots of draws.
Draw 3 cards,
Oh,
untap up to
another
2 lands
pour.
and discard. Is he going to chain pours together again? Get rid of a grazer.
I'll float a blue. Play another 4.
Oh, man, Daniel just has to sit here and
Lear!
look.
Lear! Oh, Dark Petition.
It was Dark Petition and Lear.
And remember, he has Hidden Strings.
Oh,
He's got
boy.
a ton of mana here.
Can't miss. Oh, Fournier's so close.
Oh, man.
Just needed that to be random land or whatever, and instead it was pour over the pages into pour over the pages.
So we're looking at 4, 7, 8. Okay, here we go. 2 mana.
And I'll play strings to tap your treasure and untap Lotus Field.
Oh,
I
that's
have
just
so much.
rude.
I have so much mana. I don't even need to untap my Lotus Field.
I'll go to 0 to play Dark Petition. Yep. Now I go to 3 black.
3 black. Lotus Field still in play. That's 7 mana.
Yep.
Remember, Thespian Stage taps for colorless. Will not help you cast Ultimatum if that's what you're looking for.
Don't worry.
But remember, he has a Lear, right?
Yeah.
I believe he has a Lear in hand, so now you just can replay all those cards in the graveyard.
Sorry.
I'll tap this for 3 blue.
Yeah, how about we put the
I
library
was
face
gonna
down
shuffle.
there?
I'm going to shuffle again.
He was actually just,
Yeah.
he wasn't presenting that. He was saying, I'm going to shuffle again in a second anyway. There's Hidden Strings.
All right. Now just going through the motions here. He's going to have all the mana that he'll ever need. Play Lear, get it back.
And
Draw a bunch of
everybody who
cards.
plays Arena knows what it looks like when you play Lear and your whole graveyard just jumps in front of you.
Yeah.
You got 12 cards all of a sudden. Well, now Tristan Wylde-LaRue gets to completely go off. The only question here is how much pain can Daniel Fournier take watching him
Well, I mean,
fiddle around with his Lotus Field?
yes, the game is over,
Right.
It's just you're going to generate some arbitrary amount of mana, draw a ton of cards, tutor up, approach to the second sun, cast it, tutor it up again, cast it again.
Go to 4. All strings for a blue and a black. Untap.
Just don't say green.
Tap for a green.
Ooh, you said that for green. And there it is, the
The
emergent ultimatum.
Yeah, and Tristan already knows exactly what he wants to get here. There's going to be an Omniscience, a Dark Petition, Behold usually is kind of the combination, the 3 cards that you typically get here.
Beyond the back
All right, Behold's back in, so we're going to see a free Omniscience and a fist bump scoop.
And that's going to be it. So
Not a bad one off the top.
a really exciting finish there for Tristan Wylde-LaRue. He knew he needed to top deck something. Fournier knew he needed to top deck something, and he did. And of course, it was the best something because it wasn't just the immediate, right? It was the get the ball rolling.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened there. Tristan was able to pick up the win.
And I just want to say, I mean, it's a very little thing. It's a very little thing. If you're just watching, like, wow, what a great top deck. But the thing is, he tutored for a temple there.
You're right.
He tutored for the
to
temple,
the bottom.
right to the bottom. So that extra draw step, extra card that he looked at because of that tutor, is what allowed him to win that match.
Yeah, so that's the little tiny things, right? Because it didn't look like he had any great options there to
Right.
tutor for. And in fact, that wasn't a great option, right?
No.
It's not like
It was
did
the
it.
best
I got
option that he had.
Right,
Right.
but it was exactly what he needed to get what he needed to
Yeah.
get the job done. Do you think that matchup ends up favoring Lotus Field because of that game one?
Yeah, I think game one, the Lotus Field deck is pretty heavily favored. And then after sideboard, it really comes down to how much the Rakdos deck, or any deck in this format, wants to beat Lotus Field, right? If you want to play cards like Damping Sphere, right? And you saw Necromantia here as well. Necromantia is a little more versatile because you can board it in against other linear combo strategies, but depending on how many of those cards you have, that can make the matchup a lot closer after sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, a Necromantia in that last game would have changed things for sure. Okay, we've got more action to bring you here from Pioneer. In fact, we've got Sam Pardee and Martin Juza all lined up. And we've got the entire match to show you here. Looks like it's Rakdos Sacrifice. So this is a little bit of a twist on the black-red deck that we've been seeing here. This is a sacrifice-themed deck. And then one of the decks that I have my eye on the closest here in the hands of Martin Juza. And, well, we'll just let it unfold in front of you here and see what he comes up with. But I'm curious about this Izzet deck that they've got.
Yeah, and these are teammates. They tested together. Sam ultimately chose to go with the Rakdos Sacrifice strategy here because he just said, look, I played like 500 matches with this deck.
Yeah.
I'm really comfortable with this deck. That's what I want to play. And honestly, in this format where everybody kind of knew what all the decks were, that's really, really important, right? Just pick the deck that you think is good and that you know that you're going to play it at 95% capacity. That's the thing that you should probably do.
Do you think it's really important that both the cat and the oven appear in the early stages of the game, or is that not? Does that not matter?
Well,
Do you think it's important or not important for them to have those two pieces?
oh man, cat oven.
Which, by the way, he had for like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
Spikefield Hazard just sent the cat packing for good, but
Yeah, but cat oven, any format, it's been
so
legal in.
annoying,
It
Paul.
just
I
keeps
just-
coming
Why
back.
did you design these cards?
Yep, it's
and put them
all
into the
my fault.
world?
I was like, you know what? You know what? This is an interaction that I want to see.
That powerful combo has powered multiple decks, right? I mean, you know, there's Jund ones, there's green-black, this one's red-black, and yeah, it won't die. I mean, it is an extremely potent 1-2 punch, and actually we see it right back on the battlefield here, even though that cat got exiled. This one's not going to.
We'll note, though, that in this specific matchup, now this Rakdos Sacrifice strategy is very, very good against creature decks, right? You have the cat oven combo, means it's really hard to attack into it. But when you're playing against combo strategies, that's where this Rakdos deck really tends to struggle. And that's what Martin uses. That's what Martin uses playing, right? He goes big score, untap, indomitable creativity, hit you for 30.
Yeah.
Right. And there's not a whole lot this Rakdos Sacrifice can do, at least in game one.
Nice oven. And look at this.
Nope.
He's even got
There
all
it
the
is.
pieces here as well.
Sam's like, so Sam is just making him reveal the two creatures, because sometimes you can have it in your hand.
Right, of
Right.
course.
And there's only one World Spine Worm and one Xenagos in the deck.
We already saw the World Spine Worm go by the way.
So World Spine Worm already on the stack and just forcing, just making. Oh, there it is.
And there's the Xenagos.
And that's 30.
Wow. Incredible. So Indomitable Creativity is the type of card that allows you to play a deck that has a relatively fair game plan with a combo either at the forefront if you happen to draw it or something you can fall back on. And that's exactly what we talked about coming into the round here, Paul. This is the type of deck that both you and I really like.
Yeah. Now, in this particular matchup, I'm not sure that Sam has a ton of great interaction after sideboard, you see some hand disruption. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Martin's just going to kind of run it back and just kind of try to combo Sam out still here.
Unlucky Witness kicks off turn 1 here for Sam Pardee.
Do you think that's what Sam was thinking in game 1?
I think he might end up being an unlucky witness if Martin has another draw like that. In the meantime, though, it is actually going to get sniped here. As we see the Spike Field Hazard once again just take it out. But you know what? Boom, right back in there. Another unlucky witness.
It's firing on all cylinders here.
Getting in the red zone as well.
Yeah, what Sam's looking for here is maybe some amount of disruption and also just perhaps Cat Oven Mayhem Devil just to kind of put on a clock, right? Because the damage does add up very, very quickly.
Hey, it's one of the most powerful cards in the format, and it's certainly worth a counterspell here. Martin Juza is going to send Fable to the Mirror Breaker into the Disappear Land.
That looks to be a lot of great options here. And yeah.
You know what?
I feel like if you're just playing mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on the same boat there.
I'm with you, dude.
You got mountains in your deck. You probably should just be playing this card.
Fable the Mirror Breaker gets countered by Martin, and then he plays his own.
Huh. Sam's like, if you can block, but I kind of want to look at some cards here.
Oh.
Maybe find a Thoughtseize here.
Martin hates letting creatures go by.
Right. Creature-centric player Martin generally loves playing aggressive strategies.
He is an expert in combat.
Which makes him a fantastic limited player.
It really does.
Yeah. Martin going into tank here. It's like, all right, fine. I'll take one. I think it'll be okay.
Okay, there's a cat.
Chipping away.
Ooh, ooh.
Okay.
Things getting a little
no
scarier.
oven.
Mayhem Devil, no sack outlet just yet.
Yeah, but I mean, Martin's hand is just loaded here. We see a Fire Prophecy.
Yeah, and getting better.
That'll get the Mayhem Devil. We, of course, have Chapter 2 here, a Fable going off too. So. Lots of ways to deal with what Sam's trying to do here. Just, it's like, this is all I can do. I'm just going to play my one-man 1/1s and beat you down. Okay. Martin just thinking, do I want to discard 1 or 2? I don't want to miss my land drop. Ooh, and one of the cards is a Spike Field Hazard, which is a nice clean way to kill either the Familiar or the Unlucky Witness.
I vote Familiar.
Mm. Choosing to save the Fire Prophecy here. If you can, oftentimes it's nice to keep that in hand because it's really important for you to be able to loot away a World Spine Worm or Xenagos if you do draw it.
Because they're just going to be stuck unless you do some serious treasure making.
Yeah, so there's Fire Prophecy and Valakut's Awakening. Those are kind of the two ways that you can kind of shuffle them back in. With World Spine Worm, you can also discard that to big score, and then it'll get shuffled back into your
Okay. Okay, replacement Mayhem Devil here for Sam.
This one likely will be seeing the Fire Prophecy.
Martin wants to be mana efficient here, so he is going to go ahead and do that.
And I don't think he's going to loot here.
No.
What would be really bad is if you loot and the second card from on the top of your deck is one of those creatures that we talked about.
And now it's stranded.
Right. Now, Martin, with the treasure, if he has a creativity, will have 4 or 5 mana. Fable the Mirror Breaker will become a 2/2 creature, so you have 2 targets, and you can just go for the win there.
All right, chapter 3 for Fable.
Chapter 3. Creativity?
That's what Sam Pardee's thinking.
He's like, let's just get this over with.
Is there any
He's got
risk?
creativity.
Is there any risk to going for it here for Juza?
I mean, he's only got 1 mana up. What can it be? Right? A fatal push, I suppose? Would
Yeah.
you keep that in this matchup?
No. No.
All right.
Here, he's going to go for it.
Show me.
And all he has
Let's
to do
go
is
for
show
it.
him the combo, and that
There's
will be
one.
it. Sam Pardee awaits his fate, as these players are both 3-1 coming into the round, and it looks like Martin Juza is going to improve that to 4-1 once he hits that big green monster. There it goes.
It is.
And that's going to be the match. Wow. 2 quick games for Martin Juza, really showing off the combo potential for the deck. That is plan A for that deck, and you see why. My goodness.
Right, and this is one of those matchups where you do keep the combo in. It's like, no, I don't need to go for the backup plan. I already know your deck. We've tested a bunch of games against each other. I know that you really don't have a great way to break up what I'm trying to do, so I'm just going to stick with it and just try to get you with that. And kind of coming in too, Sam probably knew, he's like, look, my deck is really well positioned against other creature decks, but I'm going to lose against the team deck. I think that is just a very, very rough matchup for him.
Yeah, that looks super, because he did stuff. Like Sam
He
Pardee was
played
absolutely
spells
doing
every
stuff.
turn. It just
Yeah.
didn't matter.
All right, well, that's going to be the last match for this particular round, but we've got Maria and the folks at the news desk to get you all geared up for the next round right after this.